Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm going to be doing a deck profile of Gren, Maju, Eiza. Now this deck is really interesting and a really mishmash kind of deck, and it's super budget to play, actually, and super fun. Like, it's a really fun deck to just be able to summon a really big monster and be able to OTK your opponent. And you guys know, if you guys have been following my channel for any amount of time, you know that that's my favorite kind of deck. Summon one really big monster and attack. I'll give you a hint. My favorite Link monster in the whole game is Borosword. Go figure. So, let's get started on this, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell down there so you can become a part of the notification squad, and let's get straight on into this. Now, this deck is really, really fun, and like I said, it's super budget. If you want to go with the build I have, you can actually deck this deck out and put a couple of other cards in here that I will mention while we're going through the deck that will kind of bump your price tag up, but make the deck even more consistent. It's already pretty consistent, but it'll make it even more consistent. So, let's get straight on to this. So first off, I'm going to be playing 3 copies of Gren, Maju, Eiza. Now, Gren, Maju, Eiza's effect is that this card gains attack defense equal to the number of your remove from play cards times 400. Now, keep in mind, there's a card called Pot of Desires in this game. Now, I'm not a fan of Pot of Desires, but in this deck, it's the key card besides Gren, Maju. So you activate Pot of Desires, banish 10 off the top of your deck, and its effect activates and it becomes 4,000 attack right out of the gate, being a normal summon, which is just really insane to me and really, really awesome to be able to summon a 4K beat stick, and it can get even bigger than that. I mean, if you think about it, he can get all the way just by banishing your entire main deck. If you had 40 cards banished, he would go up to 16,000 attack just right out of the gate, which is amazing. Then we play 3 copies of Battle Fader because we just don't want to be attacked and we want to get Gren, Maju out of pick as quickly as possible. Same thing with Swift Iron Scarecrow. Plus these cards end up banishing themselves, which is really, really nice, and be able to just be able to, you know, stop our opponent from attacking us directly. When your opponent declares a direct attack quick effect, you can discard this card, but Battle Fader actually banishes itself, which is really nice that we play that. The next card that we play 2 copies of is Necroface. Necroface is something that was more consistent when we had Goldsark at 3, but it's still pretty consistent to be able to banish it face up and get its effect off. But its effect is, if this card is normal summon, shuffle all banished cards into the deck, and then if this card gains 100 attack for each card banished into the main deck by this effect. And if this card is banished, each player banishes 5 cards from the top of their deck, or their entire deck if less than 5, which is still pretty cool, and a really good card. This deck is literally the anti-meta deck. Like, I don't know if you guys realize that, but this deck is so anti-meta. It just plays so many anti-meta cards that it's just absolutely, like, bonkers to me. So the next one that we play is 3 copies of Fairy Tale Luna. I really wish Fairy Tale Snow was still at, like, 1, but you know, Fairy Tale Luna is still pretty good. If you normal summon this card, you get to add a spellcaster with 1850 attack or less, or 1850 from your deck to your hand. So you add another copy of Fairy Tale Luna just off the normal summon. Then you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls and return this card and the monster that you targeted with this effect to the respective player's hand. If your opponent has another copy of it in their extra deck or in their deck, they can choose to send that particular copy to the graveyard instead of returning it to the hand, which is still pretty cool. And it negates the Fairy Tale Luna's effect, which Fairy Tale Luna just stays on the field, and you can do a quick effect and activate it on your opponent's turn again, which is really cool. And I really love that ability about Fairy Tale Luna. It's probably one of my... I liked it better than Fairy Tale Snow, to be honest with you. Then we play 3 copies of Eater of Millions. You can banish your extra deck cards to special summon this, and plus it boosts up your Grandma Gen. And you don't even really need an extra deck, which is what I was going to get to in a minute when we get into the spells. But you don't need an extra deck in this deck, so we play Eater of Millions, and Eater of Millions gets really big just by having stuff that's banished. It only gains 100 attack for each face-down banished card, but it can still get pretty big. Just activating 2 Pot of Desires can get it all the way up to 2,000 attack, and then banishing all 15 from your extra deck gets it up to 35, just activating 2 copies of Desires and banishing your entire extra deck. And then once per turn, during the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can banish the opponent's monster face down, which is still pretty cool. But this one actually is really cool because it counts your opponent's banished face down cards as attack gains as well. Then we play a Kaiju engine as well, just to be able to attack with Gren, Majin. to be able to go into that, we play one copy of the Thunderstrike Kaiju or Lightning Strike Kaiju, one of the Multi-Dimension Kaijus, one copy of the Mystery Dust Kaiju, one copy of Sticky Strings Kaiju, and one copy of the Sea Turtle Kaiju. Now this is really cool because you can actually activate Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, give yourself a Kaiju, give your opponent a Kaiju, summon out Gren Maju, and then attack into the particular Kaiju. And if it has anywhere around 10,000 attack, and you attack into Gamma Seal, you're going to instantly win, which is really, really awesome, and instantly OTKs your opponent, which is really just crazy to me. So anyways, that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So the spells are, just kind of support cards, just to kind of get more cards banished and more cards, to get our Kaijus out. So we're going to play 3 copies of Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. You need the 3 slumbers to just pop all your opponent's monsters, give yourself a Kaiju, give your opponent a Kaiju, summon Grandma Jin, attack with your Kaiju, and then you win. Then I only played 2 copies of Call by the Grave. I really couldn't find the room for the 3rd copy of Call by the Grave, and I wasn't that worried about it because I don't do that much searching in this deck besides Fairy Tale Luna, so I'm not worried about getting Ash Blossomed, and I don't send that many cards to the grave. The only thing that I really could get Ash Blossomed for is my Pot of Desires, and it still banishes for cost, so I'm not that worried about it. So I only played the 2 instead of 3 like I normally would. 1 copy of Golsark, it banishes our copy of Necroface to banish 5 off of both mine and of my opponent's deck, which is still pretty good. 3 copies of Soul Absorption, just 1 Desires gets you 5,000 life points with this on the field, which is just absolutely crazy. Then I play 3 copies of Pot of Duality. Pot of Duality is here because I don't special summon that much. The only time I special summon is on my opponent's turn or with Eater of Millions. Eater of Millions, it's kind of one of those things, I can wait to summon that. So I activate Pot of Duality, search the exact card I need, and then summon whatever I want. 3 copies of Pot of Desires. Pot of Desires just banishes 10 off the top of my deck and gives me what I need. And then 1 copy of Dimensional Fissure as well. Now, I will make a quick note. I don't have Pot of Extravagance, and I haven't gotten around to making any proxies of Pot of Extravagance, and I wanted to do a more budget build of Gren Maju and Eiza, so I did not include Pot of Indulgence. So I ended up just playing with this spell lineup. If you have Pot of Indulgence, you can drop Call by the Grave and Goal Sarcophagus if you want to go that route, or drop a Kaiju for that matter if you want to go that route, or Necroface if you feel like you don't need Necroface. Drop both the Necrofaces and maybe a copy of Call by the Grave, or both Call by the Graves and a Necroface. It just depends on what you feel like you want to drop for the Indulgences if you want to play 3 copies of it. It is totally up to you what you decide you want to do with this deck, and that is just my suggestion. But I totally would recommend, if I was going to drop that, I would probably end up dropping the Necrofaces, both copies of or 1 copy of Necroface, and both my Call by the Graves is what I would drop if I wanted to play the 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance or Pot of Indulgence. Whichever one you want to do, that's what I would drop right there in my hand to play that particular build. So it's something, but it's going to jump your price up by about $200 as it stands right now to play that in this build. But it's something that if you want to do that, it is going to boost your deck's consistency. So just a suggestion. So for the last card to this deck, I'm going to be playing 3 copies of DD Dynamite and 1 copy of Macrocosmos. Because Macrocosmos banishes like bunches of stuff. When this card is on the field, any card that's sent to the graveyard is removed from play instead, which is really good. And then DD Dynamite is inflict 300 points of damage to your opponent for each of your opponent's cards that is removed from play, which is really, really good. It just does extra burn damage. If you don't finish them off with Gren Maju and Eiza, you're going to finish them off with DD Dynamite. And DD Dynamite does stack. You can activate all 3 of them at once if you want to, inflicting 900 points of damage to your opponent for each banished card, which is just absolutely crazy to me. And it's just a really good card. And it's only good in this deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. I even considered playing Infernal Tempest, but I didn't. But this is just suggestions for the extra deck. It helps to have an extra deck. So I play 2 copies of Linkuriboh because I'm going to sometimes have Battle Faders left on the field, so I make Linkuriboh. This is the one thing that I highly suggest you play. If you decide to play Pot of Extravagance, play 3 copies of Linkuriboh so you have more likelihood to keep it. 1 copy of Borreload. It's occasional that I make it, but I make it sometimes. Boral Sword, occasionally I make it. Sword Yugioh, same thing. It's very occasional. This one's rare than Boral Sword or Boral Load. Griffin, it's there just in case. Topologic Trisbania, I make this more often than the Link 4s. Triple Burst Dragon, I make sometimes, but I make Trisbania more than that. Deco Talker, I make Trisbania still more. Unicorn, I make more than Trisbania, and I bounce stuff with it. Phoenix, I pop stuff with, like spells and traps. Cerberus, I pop monsters with. Underclock Taker, I sometimes summon. I actually summon this quite a lot in this deck because I make it, and then point DarkArmedAlliance at it, half my opponent's deck, and then boost my DarkArmedAlliance even higher. One copy of Baguska, and then one copy of Exciton Knight. Now you can make these only with Fairy Tail Luna. That's the only monster that you play, and Necroface, but I'm never going to summon Necroface. But you can make this with 2 Fairy Tail Lunas. Sometimes that will happen where like they negate the effect, and then they don't summon anything noteworthy to get rid of. And so next turn you normal summon the second Luna, and summon out like Baguska or Exciton Knight to blow the board or stall until you can get DarkArmedAlliance. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed this deck. It's a really, really fun deck, like I said. And it's totally old school. Like, DarkArmedAlliance came out in, Invasion of Chaos back in 2004, which this deck is literally, like, that card is 15 years old and is just now becoming meta. Like, that's what I love so much about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that you can have a card and look at it and go, wow, that's going to be good someday. And 15 years later, it becomes good. Whatever. But that's just the game we play. So anyways, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Hit that bell in there so you can become part of Notification Squad. And I will definitely see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you can see the next video that I post out there. So anyways, this is DarkArmedDuelist. See you around.